Okay, so this next section goes over chapters 3 and 4 of First Nephi. Probably one of the most popular stories in the book of... yes, what we all know Nephi for. And it's the story of Laman, Lemuel, Nephi, Sam going back to Jerusalem to obtain the plates of brass. And this was a commandment by God, revealed through Lehi, the prophet, and then given to these 4 boys to go do. And so the commandment was very clear. But what I love about this story is how they would fulfill the commandment wasn't that clear. So there's a couple of verses that I think kind of shed a great principle for us to discuss here today. I'm going to start with the latter one and then come back to the first one. The first principle is found in chapter 4, verse 6. And I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do. And now let's go back to chapter 3, verse 7. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, said unto my father, I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded. For I know that the Lord giveth no commandments unto the children of men, save he shall prepare a way for them to accomplish the thing which they have been commanded.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I love that, but I also do not love that. I have a hard time when I'm not given specific instructions on how to do things. I like to know how and everything, and so that's hard for me. And it even says that that's why it was hard for Laman and Lemuel, because they said he required a hard thing because they didn't know how to go about doing that. But I love that Nephi's response, like, he didn't question. He just said, okay, you know what, we'll just go do it, and figured out a way to do it.
Yeah, I think we were just kind of discussing before making this video, and Nephi's the author of this story, right? How easy it would have been for Nephi to just write down the story. I mean, it's the human nature side of us. How easy would it have been for him to just tell the success story? I came with my brothers, we were worried about what we should do, and I had this idea that I'm just going to creep into the city by night, and then he tells the story about finding Laban. How easy it would have been for him to just tell the success story. So I think it's interesting, why did Nephi talk about his 2 failures in obtaining the plates? And I think there's a great little lesson for all of us, that God allows us to struggle. Mm-hmm. God allows us to be humbled. He allows us to even, I'm sure Nephi, when they made the decision to cast lots, this was a decision that came, in verse 10 it says, I and my brethren did consult with one another. They were doing the things that were commanded to do. They consulted with one another. They made a decision which I'm sure felt like a decision that came in an inspired way. They're like, well, let's cast lots. That was a decision that came to them. And the outcome didn't happen the way that they thought or the way that they wanted. But that didn't stop them. A failure didn't stop them.
Like, I guess failures can be looked as like Brother Lyon said, like stepping stones in our lives. It's not like when you fail, you go back to square one, or you failed, you got to start all over. Failures can be built upon as stepping stones. It's like they said with Joseph Smith Sr. What was that? He talked about how he couldn't hold a job. He wasn't able to hold a job, and so his family had to move. And like, it was a failure in people's eyes that he couldn't keep a job, and his family had to continually move, but those failures ended up getting Joseph Smith to where he needed to be to get the gold plates. And so it's like, I guess, looking at failures, as long as we are able to have the Spirit with us, like I said, he went not knowing beforehand what he should do, but he was guided by the Spirit. And so I feel like if we have the Spirit in our lives and we are trying our best to do things the way that we know how, we will eventually, it might not be immediately, but we will eventually be getting to where we need to go in the way we need to get there, although we can't see it. God can.
I think that's why we're given these strict commandments of judging not, compare not yourself to others, because there's many paths that God uses to develop and build us. And unfortunately, this isn't like, I think, news that's received with a lot of excitement, is that unfortunately, it's the failures of our life that sometimes give us the greatest lessons of our life, the greatest growth in our personal testimonies and in our personal progression in our lives. And so I think the key that we learn from Nephi is that to keep the Spirit with you. Because even failures, when close to the Spirit, can be used in helping us to reveal God's will in our life.
Yeah.
And he knew that, right? Nephi knew that, and that's why he shows his failures, which led them closer to the outcome which they desired.
And I think it's cool looking back on our lives, well, my life, our lives together, at those failures and seeing how they did lead us to where we are today. And it kind of goes on to the next section, the next little paragraph that talks about, as you study 1 Nephi 1-7, look for ways that God prepared a way for Lehi and his family.
Yeah.
And how has he done this for you? And so, in retrospect, looking at all the things that you've done in your life, you can look back and see how has he prepared the way for you, like he has with Lehi's family all through it. Even through the failures, even through everything. It opened up certain doors and led them to certain places. And so you can look and see in your life, how have you seen God's hand?
I just want to end with one verse from this section. This is Nephi talking with his brothers. Wherefore, let us be faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord. Brothers and sisters, it's not always going to be easy to live God's commandments, nor does God intend it to be. Many times it's obedience to commandments that bring more sorrow in our lives, but understanding and having a perspective that that's how God helps us to become like God is going through some of that opposition. But let us be faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord.